Today, we're going to have hopefully a discussion. I really encourage you to get involved on digital product replicas. What the heck is a digital product replica? Why do I need a replica? What's all this digital stuff all about? So, it's big news, really big news, as they would say. My name is Steve Holzer. I am the BIMobject product evangelist. And my goal and my job is I involve myself through BIMobject in a lot of industry initiatives in this really, I won't say disruption, but I got a slide about this in a minute, this real shift in the built environment and how we're actually changing it. And we're doing a lot to lead the change. We're not the only ones by any means, but we're certainly at the forefront and challenging the industry to get more effective and efficient. So this is some of the way we're doing it with these talks, and I really encourage you to jump in and at any as we're going through any questions you have, drop them in the chat pane or the question pane over on the right side for your control panel for the webinar setup that you have. Anything that you come up with that maybe since I'm running solo today, I sometimes don't catch questions in the middle of the conversations. I try to keep an eye on it. But any of them I happen to miss, I will follow up afterwards with you and am happy to answer those. Or drop me an email. My email address will be, if you didn't get it off the first slide, I'll have it up on the last at the end. So I want this to really be a learning discussion. So it's being recorded as such so that we can share it with others. You can share it with others. And it'll be available to you as well as attendees. Usually we send out a notice a couple days. Sometimes it takes a couple hours to get it prepped and uploaded for review and sharing after the webinar, but it will be available. So as we're having a discussion today, ask yourself, why does anybody need to provide any more info than what we used and I'm going to say old days, in specifications and drawings? I mean, we certainly built a lot of buildings with specifications and drawings. Wasn't that enough? Didn't that do the job? Let's answer that together. So what's happening to our current processes in this industry? And I don't mean just in the construction. I'm talking about what we call the full building life cycle, the industry. And a lot of people, building product manufacturers even think that their engagement is just in the early, in the design and maybe a little bit further into construction. But your products live. I mean, the whole goal of selling products is they're part of a facility that's going to be around quite a while. Anything from 2 or 3 years, hope not, but longer, up to 100 years or more. So what's happening to our current processes is, I'm going to drop these words at the bottom: typewriters. Where'd they go? Cassette tapes. Okay, here's one. Compact discs were all the rage just 15, 20 years ago. I mean, that was it. That was the end all, be all. Taxi cabs, BlackBerry. Shoot, who could ever imagine a phone without a keyboard on it? These aren't even around anymore. So what's the solution? The processes are being replaced digitally, and there's a number of reasons for that. So you probably heard a lot of the buzzwords. We're now using VDC, IPD, BIM, virtual design and construction, integrated project delivery, building information modeling, or information management, depending on who you talk to, or any of 28 other 3-letter acronyms of the day. That's what we hear. That's what we think is going on. And I submit to you that some of these processes are just a new skin on an old way of thinking. As you'll see in the bullet point below, we call it disruption. For 40 years, we've been disrupting this industry, but we've really just rearranged the deck chairs on the Titanic. And it's even longer than 40 years. So I ran across this image you see a while back, and I said, that's a cool building. I wonder where that's going up. Wait a minute, going up? No. That went up 88 years ago. That's the Empire State Building. And when I saw it at first, it was only because it was kind of, had a little patina to that picture. I kind of knew it was an old building, but really there's anything different except I said, wait a minute, how are they building that without a tower crane? Oh. So I submit to you, that's a large amount of the process or progress that we've made in the last 9 decades, nearly a century, in this particular photo is a tower green. I guarantee you they were using blueprints. They were using drawings. They were using a spec book. They were using trades. They were communicating the same way 90 years ago as we are today, still the same way. Now, the delivery methods of those communications are different, but the communication platform itself is the same. So we think that disruption is that we're emailing a PDF drawing instead of delivering a roll of blueprints. I mean, seriously, this is largely what the industry's seeing, and that's it's not got to change; it's changing. So disruption doesn't work. That's why we have to, as I said, replace. Here's a little slide example. So on the left, this was probably could have been done as a blueprint back in 20s, 30s, 40s, 1900s, that is. On the right, that could have been easily done today. So what we're doing, we're saving erasers. What do both of these require, though? What do both of those documents that are maybe 60, maybe 80 years apart, they need the same thing to have life? Interpretation. This is the rub. This is the challenge. And actually, I have another discussion coming up in a few weeks about communication being the backbone of this industry, and we'll go into it a little deeper. And what I really try to do there is expose a number of points along the way that it's how critical it is. So, but interpretation, or to interpret, is what's required of drawings, of specifications, of anything. Drawings are various views. In a digital model, we don't have various views. You go look at what you need in the real virtual, how about that? The virtual reality model. But back to drawings, when they require interpretation, and many of you have seen the image at the top, it's the vase or faces, depending on which way you're looking at it. And to interpret something means that you got to explain or tell the meaning. It's not, the information's not all there for you. It takes an explanation. And it's also, this is number 2 definition under, to represent by means of art. That's exactly what we do, exactly what a blueprint does. It's attempting to represent by means of art, but it requires interpretation. So you have to have an opinion, and we all know everybody has an opinion. So if everybody has an opinion, they're not all going to be the same. How do we get this so that we're all seeing and dealing with the same thing? The little image on the right down there, the guy's drawing an Escher. I don't know if any of you are familiar. Google Escher, E-S-C-H-E-R, and he was fantastic at showing how many people could look at the exact same image, come up with a complete different perspective, view, understanding of that image. So the way we're doing it is digitalization. What will allow these processes to be replaced? Yeah, absolutely. That's really the only thing we have. And what is it? It's the use of digital technologies to, key here, change a business model. Some people argue disrupt or not. I'm telling you, I believe that we got to change it. We're replacing them. We got to destroy the existing ones because we've been disrupting for so long, and that's incremental change. And the world is no longer really is not okay with that. And we've seen this in so many industries. So with that, there are a few that are starting to recognize the value that changed that business model of these new revenue and value producing opportunities, which is just exactly the wording that's in this definition. They're huge. And every process, every work and model is challenged, not going to be. It is being challenged. Everything's becoming digital, and here it is. And we've been using this slide for a little while, but I put this blue line on it just for this presentation because I keep saying a full digitalization of our industry in the next 10 years. This slide is over 2 years, 2.5 years old. We only got 7.5 years left on that. So this was a study done by the Boston Consulting Group. Many of you follow them, about digital in engineering and construction back in March of 2016. It'll save globally in non-residential, that's just dollars. Let me tell you, it's not a matter of just saving, and I've talked about this in other discussions. We got to invent a new engine in order to meet the demand beyond just saving. We got to meet, but we also need to save, and not just save dollars, save resources. save waste. There's so many factors that come into play here that we got to completely re-engineer and replace the processes. The thing about digital replicas, your content or building product manufacturer's content is a real digital replica. It can only exist as ones or zeros, yes or no, true or false. Again, there's no interpretation. If it's a 1 or a 0, it's a 1 or it's a 0. Yes or no, green, red. There's no debate. There's no question. There's no maybe green. There's no orange. It's true or false. And that's key. So digitalization allows machines to do a lot of this. And then before I get all the emails from everyone saying, wait a minute, the machines are going to replace us all, I'd submit to you not. There are so many things that we aren't even addressing that need to be done in this industry that take a human interaction, but we can't address them right now because the humans are being spent, our energy and efforts are often being spent managing processes and even design tasks that could be done by machines so that we can continue to peel that onion and get to the other pieces that we can't even address right now because we're busy moving paper from slot A to from the in basket to the out basket. That's not adding any value. So how do we do that? Digital replicas, what is it? Well, it's a product model. It's a model. And we'll get into this more, but I want to impress here that the product model is not just the geometry. It's not just the 3D. It's not just the cool, wow, that's neat, we can look at it. That's a very important, but also very small portion of the value of digital replicas or the product models. And even more so, manufacturer-specific objects. We've got to have manufacturer-specific objects. We can't, in a minute you'll see another version, but we can't continue as it did when we did drawings. Many years ago, decades ago, an architect had a piece of paper and a T-square and a little acetate template that had all kinds of plumbing fixtures that he just drew, that he traced. And, oh, yeah, you could tell that was a double bowl sink from the plan view. Oh, you could see that is a wall-mounted sink, but you couldn't tell. You just knew that was because you had to look at an elevation, interpret it from a different view to see that was actually a wall-mounted sink. So BIMobject, this is kind of our foundational offering. If you go out, this is just the BIMobject portal off of BIMobject.com, browse BIMobjects. So we have plugins also that are able to allow, so a designer or a modeler doesn't, or facility manager, whoever, if he's in many authoring tools like Revit, ArchiCAD, SketchUp, Vectorworks, he's able to have a plugin that allows him to make that selection of various products at real time within his workflow. He doesn't have to go outside, download it, go outside, upload it into the library, and then come in and insert it. When he makes that selection within the plugin in their software platform, in their modeling platform, it's ready to be placed right then and have be configured. So what difference does the data make? I said a minute ago, it's not just the geometry, it's data. And these quotes actually have had from building product manufacturers. I was talking to a very, very large roofing membrane, rubber roof contractor. And he said, we don't really, why do we need, digital content, digital products? All we are is one, this is literally, all we are is one line in a wall section detail. And I said, that's great. You're exactly right. You're only one line on a wall section detail. But what you don't understand is that I had a call, last week from an engineer that's designing the HVAC system for that new dorm building for XYZ University, and he's trying to run a heat gain calcs, and he needs to know what the reflectance ratio is doing the sun study on the roof membrane, or any host of other things. So what really matters here is, not just a 3D object. I have the 3D object. Why can't I just send them a PDF of the Kobe data? Or they can get the STC rating of my ceiling panels right off the cut sheets. You're right, they can, but they're not doing it anymore, and that's leaving building product manufacturers out of the game that don't have this as consumable digital properties. That's very, very important to so much of the simulation and virtualizations and engineering that's being done today. They can bring in, and hey, that's cool. We can see those ceiling tiles, and not only that, they're beautiful. We got them in a VR environment. Hey, those really make that room. And it's very realistic. But wait a minute, what's the STC rating? Because they're running a complete sound engineering system for that complete room with the furnishings in it to measure and make sure the design is going to comply with the outcome that the owner is demanding for that conference room. And so they don't want to go out, though, when that engineer is running that, using those virtualization platforms. They don't want to go out and have to download somebody's PDF, back to our current, we think we're disrupting because we now have a PDF in the web, and type in that STC rating or that flame spread rating or the weight of that tile into their software. They want to be able to consume it as data, as digital data. And this is not just in the design process. This flows through much, much farther. At BIMobject, we have a complete ecosystem available, a complete ecosystem. But the core foundation and the underlying fabric of that ecosystem, the currency, if you will, the digital currency, is the content, the objects, the building products. Because as what's existing in the real world, those products are what have to go together. And at some point, they have to work together and create a complete assembly for that building to satisfy the requirements of the owner. So as you can see here, there's actors involved in this full building life cycle, and I submit that this even needs to go a step further to building turnover, commissioning, and operation, and renovation, and deconstruction. Because as many facility managers that I talk with all the time, you know, if they want to demolish a building, let's say worst case, they're going to demolish a building, the amount of information they need in this day and age to demolish a building is astounding in terms of hazardous waste, in terms of reusable components, in terms of so many things that we need that digital content, that data model, that complete digital twin to understand and get that information without going back to the rolls of blueprints that are stacked on a pallet in the boiler room that flooded 7 years ago, and maybe we still have the spec books that maybe somebody scanned them into PDFs on a CD. I don't know, but still, that's not an acceptable way to manage the information today. So that's the new built world order. It's Legos. We got an internet-based platform where everybody is participating. I was on a call earlier today, and another key point I want to make in this whole digital economy and the digital built environment is we think right now that it's digital because I created a model in a file and I sent that file via the internet from the architect to the engineer. Okay, that immediately one or the other of those is going to be outdated the first time somebody else breathes on that model again. So the new world order is a centralized, focused data warehouse that is used by everyone involved in the project, and they're all doing their own work as they always have, but they're doing it on a collaborative platform. So it's coming together like a group of Legos. Legos fit together. They're made to fit together. Actually, building products are made to fit together. It's just if you're using the wrong one, you know, if you're using the round Lego to try to put together or square Legos to put together a wheel for a Lego cart, that's not going to really function well. So you got to use the right Legos. Even though they're all interoperable, they all work together, you got to use the right piece at the right time. Have you ever been in a building cooled with a generic HVAC system? No, you haven't, I promise you. And that wouldn't work too well. So the point there is that we drop these generic air handlers in a mechanical design, but wait a minute, that's not what's going to be built. So in order to really manage the design and later on the building itself, we're digitally construct these instead of drawing them. And it's got to be, again, brand specific. SimScale is one of the platforms I've referred to that they do have a cloud platform. I get calls from them often about their engineers are looking for real content. There's a number of our building product manufacturers that they use. They highly recommend to designers and to engineers and to owners to use the content that they can find the full digital replicas of, because they can run it in their simulation cloud platforms, and they want a complete system. They don't want the top 5 SKUs of a vendor. They need the complete system, the complete set of content. So digital tools allow us to build it right, build it twice. That's important and incredible. I've shared this a number of times that one of the greatest impediments to the uptake of digitalization in BIM, when I was working in the National Institute of Building Sciences, we developed the BIM standard. We saw there wasn't a lot of actual, real building product manufacturer digital content. We knew that had to come into play. So with platforms like BIMobject and others now, we're getting it, but it is so critical that it's more than just the geometry. It allows us to create that digital twin. I mentioned this a minute ago. That digital twin gets constructed up. It may start out as a single model on the designer's desk, but that model gets put into the cloud at some point and then gets embellished by all the actors involved. And it's kind of done real time, so people can see, the old days of having clash detection meetings once a week, when everybody works 4 days a week trying to put their own systems together, and then they meet 1 day a week, and then they have to go back and rework another whole week because half the stuff they did doesn't work. That's not effective. We need to be able to do it, with the various actors real time. So again, the value is in the properties. It's in the metadata. It's in the weight. It's in the fire rating. So what we need to have, for this to all work is we've got to have real data connected to real content. One thing we do at BIMobject as well, one of the objections, I guess you'd say, from the user base with 915,000 users, I get to hear a fair bit. They say, oh, well, we don't need all those properties. I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and with a number of designers, they say, we don't want all these properties in downloading these models, and it just weighs it down. We don't need to know all this information at that time. And I said, you're right, I understand that. And that's why what we have at BIMobject is our property sets, which allow the content to be downloaded or accessed at a point in time in the process for that actor, that guy that needs it, the engineer, the gal that needs it as a designer. A lot of the metadata beyond just the geometry. And it also allows it to be updated throughout the life cycle. So with BIMobject, we have what's a call to home function, which is part of the reason we require registration from the users when they download the content, is that actually puts together a threading and allows communication between your or the building product manufacturer's content on the BIMobject portal, and even 3 years later, 5 years later, when that in this case dishwashers you see on the screen, when that dishwasher is installed in a commercial kitchen in a dorm cafeteria, they can actually access any potential manufacturer information about it at the same time. That's 5 years later. Or if this was in the design phase and somebody didn't have all the parameters when it was originally designed of the heat gain that was put in there or the electrical load, that can be accessed through the external property sets. So this is just a shot of one of the other enabling platforms or technologies. This is our Hercules, but this shows, in this case, where they're actually building this building. This is a vendor of ours that we built an app for, that actually every masonry unit, every specialized masonry unit, it's all in the building. It's actually what's going to be sent to the job site. It's exactly what they need. It even has the cuts of standard sizes available in a listing. This is just another, call it exploded view, again, where different actors can access the exact same data warehouse and model of a facility and not do estimating. We don't do that anymore. Another part of the forget disruption, we destroyed estimating. Now we cost define, because we can cost define because we have technology. It's ones and zeros. We can count how many doors of the EAXY123 model by door manufacturer, Hundinger is, and we know that we don't have to say, I think we have, I better add 10%. It's there. It's real. It's ones or twos. This is zooming into that exact same model further on that platform, and this shows every single fitting that's going to be able to be utilized. And if, again, we can bring in the properties if need be. So realistic representation means the owners see what they're getting. And sorry, I'm running a little over. I understand this, as I said, this video will be available and uploaded for those of you that only allowed the 30 minutes for it, but I'll keep running through here, and we'll get it uploaded. But realistic representations mean the owners see what they're getting. So we talked about VR and AR. We also have tools that are being used not only in the early phase, but the scanners and drones even during construction, capturing progress and being able to have a three-dimensional, viewable, immersible experience of what's going on. But wait a minute, Steve. We've been talking about this $9 trillion industry. What about the other 91% that is not new? Because most of what I've been talking about, even though I've mentioned existing, is largely its focus has been new. So here at BIMobject, I'm glad you asked. We have a solution. So this particular video is using a Matterport scan, and I call it we harvest. We harvest the existing facilities. We harvest this existing building. And it's a quick way to gather the information, but then at BIMobject what we do is we create the value, as you'll see in a minute here, with tagging the assets that are on our platform or otherwise. This allows an existing facility to start to become digitally enabled, BIM enabled, which is a real key, since the majority of all the buildings out there that are 50 years old, how do you get them digital? They've been around for 50 years. How do you bring them into this digital process and economy? And that's what we're showing here. So it's not only in the previewing and seeing new ways of, the new furniture, placing furniture, what's it going to look like in my office? What's it going to look like in my facility? And we just did a short vignette here in one of our offices to show what it's all about. But we also have a way to tag existing assets in order to be able to access that information through that model for a facility manager later on, or even going into a renovation, you could go in and harvest it. But all this information is tied in real time to the back end digital content of the platform and is updatable at any time. So it allows a facility manager to know everything, even the history of when it was installed, who installed it, and how, real time. And again, this is a bridge that we're using, a way we're bringing in that other 91% of the volume into the. I'm glad you like that, Mariana. I thought you might. Let me go back to my screen. I am. Was I on mute during that video? All right. But you can hear me now. Okay, well, a few more here. So we end up with a single source of truth, controlled syndication. It's with the platform being the place that all this content, digital content, is fully vetted, managed, and versioned, updated. It's able to be utilized by every actor in the full building life cycle and beyond. That's some of the keys. To that degree, I'd like to close out each session, not just with question and answers, but also share that, we're 97 out of the 100 largest architecture firms in the world are using our platform. I'm not sure who the other three are, but we're going to get them too. 95 out of the 100 largest design and engineering firms, again, back to the digital consumption of digital assets, digital values, not just the geometry and the visual aspects, engineering firms. But even more telling, and I'm thinking this is going to grow a lot, is the percentage of the largest construction firms in the world. They understand they're the ones that have to make it real, make it work, bring it together no matter what was planned. And they really are seeing the value of real digital content as the owners are also starting to demand it. I mean, it's another slide I need to pull together at some point, is what percentage of institutional owners are using our content. I'm sure it's pretty significant. Stefan Larsen, our CEO, likens what we've created here, that we're the construction industry's equivalent to Spotify. Obviously, we maybe do produce some music, but we don't produce a lot of music. But we give a cloud service that is with all the information for building components, that we're a community for all actors, as I've said a number of times. It's every player in the industry, but they're all accessing the same data, the same information. It doesn't get a chance to get out of sync or outdated. So Mayana, did you have any questions that had come in? I was not watching it since I was obviously too busy messing up the various controls. Uh,
Um, Questions. However, I would like you to talk a little bit more about the opportunities that we have under this new building era, as you mentioned.
well, the opportunities are not always apparent, especially to folks that have been in the industry for quite a while. I was with one of my colleagues and one of our customers this morning, and just having a discussion about how his products are live and his sales processes even and the content lives beyond just getting included as a specification in a new building going up. The only because it's becomes digital can it truly be shared. If not, you're not sharing the same information. You're getting a different version, and that can change. So what I mean by that is every time you hand it off to someone else, it can be tainted. Uh, it can be misinterpreted. With digitalization, it isn't. It stays very much the same. So what our platform does is it develop ways that we enable that same content to be accessed at every point in the full building life cycle. So it's the same content. You're looking at the same thing. As a I remember like as a kid when I was little downtown, like in New York City or any place you go by a construction site and you're on a sidewalk, and most of us have probably been down that road, but you're on a sidewalk and you got different holes cut in the plywood to look into the site. Not
Yeah.
everybody that was looking in was seeing the exact same wheelbarrow or bricks, pile of bricks or whatever, but they were all seeing it from a different point, a different angle. So that's the digital equivalent. All different players, all different actors, whether it's a designer, an engineer, a tendering officer, a construction manager, they all need to see the exact same information, and they just need to see it through the tools they're using. So our
So,
platform allows that.
so this means that even if you are like just an interior designer or an architect, it doesn't matter. You have tons of opportunities to explore, not only as a manufacturer, but the whole chain, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It takes all participants really to use um, these tool sets, and that's what gives them the value. That's what creates the value because we're all working with the same information.
Great. So I think that was basically it. I don't see any questions coming in. We can wrap it up. It was just a great talk. I learned so much from you. Thank you so much, Steve. Next week we have another one.
We do. We have two more coming up, and they were on the original invite that everyone that's on this one got. So there are a number of different sessions. You there are drop downs when you go to sign up, and you can pick the time and day that works best for you. So by all means, and if anyone needs to have that resent, just email me. There's my email address on the screen right now. Let me know. As well, there's two other things that I want to make sure you're aware of. BIMobject Live, you can go to world.bimobject.com. It's our annual gathering and award ceremonies for our building product manufacturers. There's a lot to be learned there. There's a great lineup of speakers that are sharing what we're doing on the global industry perspective to bring this digitalization to the industry. Not just our own customers, but even industry leaders will be there speaking about that, as well as the second day is a lot of classes. So that's in Malmo, Sweden. Again, world.bimobject.com. And another one coming up, BIMobject will be, again, having a major presence with a very large contingent of people at Autodesk University in Las Vegas, November 13th to 15th. Uh, by all means, we can spend time there. We have all of our key subject matter experts on these various, because it is a wide platform that has a lot of different aspects of engagement on it. We have experts from each of those areas that are able to share with you one-on-one there and show you hands-on real aspects of it. So stop in and join us at Autodesk University in Las Vegas, 13th to the 15th.
Okay.
With that being said, we do have it says right on there, a short survey after the webinar. I appreciate any feedback anybody has. other than for me to get some remedial training on running the webinar uh, and whether my screen's being shown or not. So I'll be back in classes for that next week, and I'll see you on the next one. So thank you all for being here, and looking forward to spending more time with you on another one.
See you next week, Steve.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.